Welcome to video 2 of Adventures with the Volkswagen Prince. I'm your host, Dan J. Pele, and you are tuned into the Dan Pele channel. So I, um, I don't want people to think that like I'll be telling my life story like piece by, like video by video, like the Risa Tisa. Like I'm not doing that at all. Um, I am telling my story, but in my own way, and I'll be putting pieces of my story as I find them appropriate. And so I had an idea for what I wanted episode 2 to look like of this series, and episode 1 is actually on hold right now. I think I have it set to private, but I will be I'll be editing that video so that like you guys can go back and watch it if you haven't watched it. But kind of recapping from the last video where I was talking about how my life was actually more of a waking nightmare when I was transitioning from Texas to LA to Cali. So I had an idea of what I wanted episode 2 to be like, and that's really not the vibe today. So I'm gonna share that. I'm still gonna share what I had initially wanted to share, but just not right now. And I'm really technology savvy. And so the way that I was gonna do episode 2, I was gonna take a video clip of something I recorded earlier this year. I want to say the middle of January, and I was gonna insert it and make it episode 2. And I take having like editing technology problems, uploading and stuff like that as like a sign from the universe. So I really just feel like right now is just not the time for me to share what I wanted to share for episode 2, which is cool because today the vibe is totally different anyway. Like I'm more so want to talk about like relationships, and the ones that I had left behind that I just couldn't see myself continuing. And some people thought it was because I thought I was better than them or whatever. Like they had their own they had their minds made up about why I wasn't talking to them anymore. And really most of it was a nigga just needs to get his fucking life together. And I told them enough. That's how I felt. I felt like I told all of you all enough, and you didn't really care. You really didn't have anything to encourage me on, help me out with, or anything. I confided in all my friends about what was going on, and I didn't care for any of their responses because it was very lackluster considering the amount of love, time, and attention that I had put into them and to their lives and to their problems. And so for example, and I don't judge them for not being capable to really see me when I wanted to be seen, when I needed to be seen. I don't judge them for that, because here's an example. I was telling like my closest person at the time, like, this is what's going on with me, and I started crying because I knew that my identity had been stolen by this guy. And like I told her, I was like, I have like credit card companies calling me that I never took a credit card out for, and I'm just really telling her all of these things, and she simply goes, oh my goodness, like, why don't you just take your life back? And at the time I was crying, so I was in it, right? I was in the emotion, and I was like, what? I was like, I don't know how to, or something like that. And looking back at it now, I'm not so upset like I used to be, because I was like, how could she say that to me after I just said everything that was going on? How could that be what she says? But when I think about it, she also told me that I was one of the strongest people that she knew. And so coming out of her mouth, I'm sure she felt like, well, why can't you take your life back? You know what I'm saying? And I didn't factor that in. Like, I was the friend that was the most level-headed. I was the one that, gave her the best advice and was, always there for her. And so looking back on it, is like, I can't really be mad that her response was, oh my goodness, why don't you just take your life back? Because she saw me in that light of like being able to do anything, or being able to do anything I put my mind to. Because nobody else in her life had like exuded that or showed that. But again, like, not just her response, but everybody else's response to like what was really happening with me was just so lackluster, which is part reason why I just was like, well, you have nothing to say to me, you have nothing to give to me, I can't talk to y'all. Not because you don't have anything to say and give, but because this is so heavy for me and I really need to figure this out on my own. And I was talked about for that. I was betrayed for that, for stepping out and trying to fix my life on my own after getting responses like, why don't you just take your life back? And I've never seen you so out of sorts like this. One of my other friends was like, he's really got you. I've never ever heard you paranoid and out of sorts like this. That's all she could say. That's all she could say. And when I confronted her about being there for me and how I didn't ask for much, and how this was the time I really needed her to step up and be my friend, she literally was like, I don't have the capacity for it. I can't. Between issues with my baby and my husband acting this way, and I'm like, okay, yeah, my life falling apart is bad. It's bad timing for what's happening in your life, and I respect that. But I also never asked you to be there for me in the way that I'm asking you now. I've literally carried my own shit and yours. I've been there for you and yours. And when I'm asking for a little bit more from our friendship while I'm going through this very scary time, and it was very scary because I thought that once he moved out, like, it was done, it was over. But I literally seen him later, like walking the grounds of my apartment. I saw him. I was in bed one time and they switched our locks to key code locks. I was in bed one time and I think I was watching what was I watching? And the TV was a bit loud. I was watching Game of Thrones, and I heard the lock makes this sound when the code is entered incorrectly, and the lock made the sound as if someone was attempting to get into my apartment. By the time I went downstairs, nobody was there, but somebody would have had to touch the lock for the sound to make it sound like incorrect, code. And luckily, you know what I'm saying? Like, I changed my code after Buddy ass and I broke up, but it was things like that just, between that, my mailbox being like jimmied, and like specific cars following me. I actually had one car, I had one person in a car like roll up on me take a photo of me and drive off. Like literally held his phone up, like as like intentionally taking a photo, like this is him, he's here. And so even from like my older friends, they were not much comfort either. One of them was like, oh, you know, nothing bad is gonna happen to you, you know, like you're over exaggerating this, and you should have gotten the license plate of the person who took the picture of you, not knowing how fast everything happened. And oh my god, it's over 10 minutes. Okay, I guess I'll make this one 15 too. I'll wrap it up. But I had done a lot of processing about these relationships and how when I was in like the worst time of my life, because I was legitimately afraid of, you know, my well-being, like it wasn't nobody's concern, it wasn't nobody's problem. And so me leaving and not telling anybody and, you know, being hush about it, that was for my safety. I was looking out for me because nobody else was. And I started to think the other day, like, oh my goodness, I have had the most worst I started to accuse myself of having a bad judge of character. And it's because I wasn't judgmental of who these people were, what their lives looked like, and because I offered them love and because I wanted the best for each and every one of them. It's because I wasn't judgmental that led me to believe that you know, I couldn't possibly lose them. And I had to learn, like, that's the farthest thing from the truth. And not only will you lose them, they will stab you in the back as well. And so it's funny because I sometimes get put in a position of like leadership because of like my thinking and my responses, and I don't necessarily ask for that type of pedestal or position, but I had, and this is why I was like, let me get off, you know, TikTok and everything, because I am figuring my shit out, and I have been for a very long time, and I will never you know, claim to know what is good for somebody else or anything like that. You know, it's because I'm not a judgmental person that, you know, I'm not going to attack anybody's human experience. And to end this video off, and it's raining right now, and I feel like crying because I'm thinking of a friend that I had that passed away who was really one of the most like humble souls I've ever met in my life. We went to high school together, and on his MySpace page, he had the more I hear from the world, the more silence I prefer. And this was, you know, back in the early 2000s, and sometimes I think of like, if he was here, you know what I mean, like what would he think of this shit now, you know? So I don't know, maybe whoever's watching this video is like, you can, don't be upset at saying don't say like you've misjudged someone or you're a bad judge of character because of how things unfolded between you and someone else. It's because you didn't judge them. It's because you gave them their dignity and their humanity, and that's one of the best things that you can do. Even if other people may look at them and say, oh, she just a hood rat, or, you know, he just a fuck boy, you know, I mean, I don't know. I also have an issue of seeing things and seeing people for, you know, what I would like them to be or what I can see it becoming versus what it actually is, and that's on me, you know. But I'm not gonna beat myself up anymore for, you know, giving love to the wrong people. Peace, love, and light. Work on that shadow.